James, we talk a lot about preparedness and growing a garden and how the powers that shouldn't be want to come after our food supply. That's a way in which they can really control us.
Hmm.
And number four in our Project Censored 20 top 25 censored stories this past year is global food crisis expands a new worldwide spike in agricultural commodity and food prices is generating both predictable and extraordinary fallouts. We talked about what happened with the Fort Calhoun flood and what that was going to
Mm.
do to the wheat and rice that we grow here, and then we kind of forgot about it. But have no fear, folks. This is really going to be really bad. And we'll see similar food riots like we saw a couple years ago, perhaps in Haiti and Egypt
Mm.
and Indonesia, where they were eating mud cakes in Haiti just to satisfy the hunger. A very important story. At number four, global food crisis expands.
And I've been trying to ramp up my coverage on foodworldorder.com just as the global food situation becomes more and more and more important. Number 5 on the list, private prison companies fund anti-immigrant legislation. This is just the classic scheme of, oh, I'm going to build a prison and then demonize a group of people so I can stock up my prison and make a bunch of money.
Maybe they're involved with that story we reported in the beginning of the show.
Wouldn't be surprised in any way.
I guess there is a private prison company that was involved with that. So,
And remember, there was that American prison. The story. That's the hard thing. So many things move through the media that to then recall one specific instance of corruption, it's tough to. There was some kind of police scandal where a private corporation was running something behind the scenes.
yeah. At number six, I think this one's pretty straightforward. Google spying? Question mark.
We can drop the question mark because we know that Google and we know that Facebook and we know that all the major tech companies are in bed either implicitly or explicitly or financially or otherwise with the Western finance oligarchs.
Now you say that, but when the SOPA Act was making the rounds, and I guess it still hasn't gone up for a vote yet on the SOPA Act, but the CEO of Google weighed in on it, and he was quoted in saying, "This is absolutely draconian."
I think the back and forth can be whether it's the politicians or the corporations, and of course we know they're now the same, and that's fascism and that's corporatism. They can each on various occasions go, oh God, don't throw me into the briar patch.
Yeah.
So number 7 on the list, U.S. Army and psychology's largest experiment ever. This one I am not familiar with, but all of these stories are all linked up and have the full breakdown on projectcensored.org. So for everybody to go out there and check it out. They get into the military getting in bed with, I guess it's always such a surprise. I can't believe the military is using a scientific dictatorship to run experiments on all of us continually.
It's called CSF, Comprehensive Soldier Fitness, and it is a $117 million collaboration with the U.S. Army. And very interesting. I had not heard about this either, James, but again, it is at the website MediaMonarchy.com, and we'll go ahead and link these stories up
Yeah.
at Bob Tuskin as well.
And
'Cause
that should just bring up a specter of, Manchurian candidates or
exactly.
soldiers coming home and killing themselves because they weren't taken care of before or after. Number
I
8
guess
on
all
the
of these
list.
stories kind of go together in
They
some way.
they do, and the global food crisis, all of these things. Oh, we could solve these problems if we wanted to, but they're not on the agenda. The fairy tale of clean and safe nuclear power. I can only assume they're referring to Fukushima, which has been, I would say, pretty much the dominant story of the past year. But it cuts both ways with all of these things, and again, let's outlaw nuclear power. Let's get rid of coal. Let's get.
Sure. Number nine, government-sponsored technologies for weather modification.
And they don't use the term geoengineering, at least in that headline, but when you click on this story, they mention HARP. They get right into it, and they talk about contrails and artificial contrails and case orange contrail science. All of these things exist. I think it's in how to discuss it. Just like we were saying, does it say geoengineering? When you say chemtrails, that's going to make the average person who's been dumbed down by the mainstream media, if their media has ever mentioned chemtrails. But if you use the correct terminology, it's like, no, they're calling it geoengineering. If you get at the heart of what they're really talking about, you can see that these things exist, and weather modification exists, and all the things that we don't know about.
It's funny because even though we think geoengineering is this obscure term, I called in to a radio show the other day, and I told this story on air, but long story short, the second I mentioned geoengineering, they hung up on me and all chimed in that I was a conspiracy chemtrail guy.
But I think that's the thing, is on the one hand, they'll try and play it off that it doesn't exist. But then if you start to talk about it, they'll go, oh, no, it's just, like cloud seeding. It's just quaint.
Yeah. In fact, Rosalind Peterson has been on to them. They're trying to change the name from geoengineering because they have realized that folks that listen to our radio show and are aware of this kind of thing are on to what geoengineering is really about.
And I think, again, when all of these cases, the lies have to keep updating themselves and get rebuffered and reintroduced and to catapult the propaganda, like Bush said. But with the truth, you just got it, and you just lay it out. Number 10 on the list, the real unemployment rate, 1 out of 5 in the U.S. This is the other brewing crisis in this country. The food and the jobs and military coming home, all of those things, are brewing up to... The optimist in me says, oh, no, it's all going to be... It's going to work out, and we are going to win. And the moment that the powers that shouldn't be go for it, they're going to lose instantly. But then, on the other hand, I feel like I look around sometimes and go, oh, my God, we're screwed. The moment something goes down, everybody's going to turn into a bunch of ridiculous animals.
Yeah. Well, people should be getting prepared, and hopefully that won't happen if they're ready for it. At number 11, trafficking of Iraqi women rampant. I had not heard about this.
I have not either, and I have heard it also reported and said, that there are more slaves now than there ever were in history.
Well, we're all debt slaves, so...
Human trafficking occurs throughout the world, yet has become increasingly more prevalent among the country of Iraq due to the instability produced by the Iraq War. So there you go, another mission accomplished. Number 12.
Number 12.
Number 12 is the Pacific garbage dump. Did you really think your plastic was being recycled? And I think they're probably referring to the Great Pacific Garbage Clump or Island,
the size of Texas.
Oi. Number 13.
I mean, and it's just water. It's just soda bottles. If you look at it, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's another amazing scheme, is selling plastic water to people. Number 13 on the list, will a state of emergency be used to supersede our Constitution? These are the things, Bob, I think we were referring to, that they get into things that the alternative media would discuss. A program dating back to the Eisenhower era of emergency measures for an America devastated in a nuclear attack is now converted to bestow secret powers on the president for anything he considers an emergency. The National Emergency Centers Establishment Act, H.R. 645, recently introduced in Congress, calls for the establishment of national emergency centers in major regions in the U.S. It's all related, Bob.
Wow. Enough said. Number 14, family pressure on young girls for genitalia mutilation continues in Kenya. Yeah, I've been aware of the female circumcisions going on in Africa.
Yeah, and now I see it's interesting that the trafficking of Iraqi women rampant and family pressure on young girls and genital mutilation. That these other stories are sort of like, soldiers, they blew their heads off, and Obama did this and that. But when it comes to women, it's very sexual, it's very perverse, it's very invasive, it's very destructive and disgusting, and that much more sinister.
Yeah.
Big polluters freed from environmental oversight. That's number 15 on the list. And Bob, that reminds me, I just want to throw out the mention that the Federal Mine Safety and Health Administration report came out, and they're going to fine Massey Energy, which is now Alpha, $209 million for the Upper Big Branch mine disaster in my home state of West Virginia last year. So when you think, oh, yeah, good, give it to them. 209 million, and that's only, the initial note with that, which could come down in appeals and all those things. It's just another case of, the destruction. Be like, oh, I can throw off some crumbs and pay it off, and we'll move along.
We couldn't have planned this better, James, because we're coming up to our a break here, and we'll be back with our final segment, and we have exactly 10 left.
That'll work.
So we'll give our final 10 here on our list and go over it and continue with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.